Speech off.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it's Brandon, and I don't know quite what I'm showing here on the camera, so if you see radios, a chair, or a computer, or a soda can, or a laptop, or an amplifier, or something, and me rocking back and forth, I apologize. This is not your normally recorded video from the normally recorded audio gear. I am using my iPhone for the purposes of explaining the usage of screen readers. As I put you on the chair in front of me, so that way the if nothing else, the light isn't flashing from my rocking. The basic tenet of how a screen reader works, for those who are not familiar with that and or how the technology is designed, is as follows. Screen reader is a program. Now, let's be very clear. The screen reader is different than the speech synthesizer. The synthesizer is the voice used to speak the text. The screen reader is what sends the text to the synthesizer. How does it do it? It captures elements on the screen. For example, a record button that might be sitting on a screen and speaks it aloud. If, of course, the controls are labeled properly. If they're not labeled properly, then you're going to find yourself running into something where it'll say something along the lines of button, or maybe unlabeled button. In the case of TalkBack, it might even just say unlabeled. In a case like that, what this also means is that controls may not always be labeled. In apps, for example, that have or more pictorially oriented, those apps may or may not work properly according to, for example, let's say, for example, if I launch an application, actually Dolby On has a classic example. The initial button is not labeled on the iPhone app to record. Until you double tap it, then it shows up with all the options to record videos, switch to live stream, and on and on and on. What this means is that in order for me to actually adequately ensure that I know what I'm doing, I have to kind of play a guessing game. Now, if you are being sent this video by my dear friend and little sister Nesma, who is off to my, well, right, probably your left, depending on which way I have the phone oriented in terms of audio separation, you are probably hearing, she is probably sending you a YouTube link that is this video explaining how we do this. What you will find is certain apps require, in fact, all apps are set to a standard for accessibility or usability. Does not mean they always follow it. If you are getting this video in the app Groove Light, you're going to be very dismayed to find out that certain functions are not accessible to a blind person. The good example might be the amount of credits you have. Or, for example, in videos, it cannot describe what's happening in the videos. I sent a comprehensive text message for those who want to know to help her explain that for you guys. But this video may do a more clearer job of explaining that. Let's actually attempt this. I'm actually sitting on the record stream, so you'll be able to hear how the screen reader works. Let me actually slow the speech rate down, because you won't understand it at its current rate.
Speech on. Words. Speaking rate 50%.
Okay.
Stop streaming button. Stop streaming.
So that's the only button here.
Speech off.
That's the reason why that button was able to say stop streaming is because those words are actually labeled on screen. If, however, the button had no label, it would just say unlabeled. You would probably not even hear, for that matter, let alone anything but just button. Now, when there's image text, the screen reader tries to pick up on it, but it does not always succeed. VoiceOver, for example, would say, would make a dinging sound and say stop stream. But that does not mean that that's always the case. It is up to an app developer to be responsible for making an app accessible. So this video is basically a comprehensive explanation of what a screen reader is. It's not the best demonstration of a screen reader I can give you. But one way to think of a screen reader is the same way you'd think of having somebody stand next to you and verbally tell you what's on the screen. Now that does not mean that it can describe a video. Good example, if I go on YouTube and I search up a video about, crazy finish to a NASCAR race, but for the descriptions of what's happening and hearing the sound of the cars, I would have no clue what's happening in the video. Just hearing the sounds of the cars alone isn't enough. That's why radio broadcasts are very equal paradoxical to a person who's blind or visually impaired, because they become the epicenter for the understanding of how it works. So anybody that wanted to know who I am, this video, well, you get introduced to my voice, and sadly it's while I'm battling an infection, so I apologize. Some of my words are still running together a little bit. I've noticed still having a little bit of trouble yet talking, but I'm getting better, slowly but surely. That in mind, that is how a screen reader works. If you have questions, contact my Telegram under this banner, Chinmouth86, Brandon Hennis 1986 on Discord. My iCloud is bhsprn@icloud.com if you want to send iMessage. My email is kc0usm@gmail.com, or WebORoll, W as in William, E, B, B, that's B as in boy, B as in boy, the letter O as in Oscar, roll, R-O-L-E as in echo, at gmail.com. That's WEBBOROLE at gmail.com. I do have multiple Facebooks, but you will probably be added to the more reduced version of them, if not the more active version. Depends on how that's set up. I also use Discord, like I stated before. I don't use a lot of other apps. There are accessibility issues with them. There are some good ones out there. There used to be one called Party Line that was very accessible, but they ditched that app on account of multiple circumstances. Not sure entirely what did it, but I haven't seen that app around. Kakao Talk, K-A-K-A-O Talk, Kakao Talk is one good example. Got one of the cutest ringtones you'll ever hear, by the way. That's one app I use for talking. Another app I use, if you have it, is I normally might use Zello. And I also I'm happy to say that I actually own one of the much advertised Rapid radios. So there are 1,000 ways, it seems, to get a hold of me. Give one a try. You might just find yourself glad you did. This has been Brandon with the Screen Reader